For more than 6 decades, Stevie Wonder has been the soundtrack to millions of lives. His music, full of hope, love, and spiritual strength, has transcended generations. From Superstition to Isn't She Lovely, his songs became anthems of joy and resilience. Yet behind the soulful melodies and unforgettable smile, the truth about Stevie Wonder's later years is far more heartbreaking than fans ever imagined. Now, at 75, the man who once embodied pure musical genius is facing the most painful chapter of his life. After years of inspiring the world with his gift, Stevie's health has quietly declined. He's been battling serious medical challenges, and those close to him say the road hasn't been easy. Once energetic and unstoppable, the living legend has been forced to confront the one thing he's always feared: time. But this isn't just a story about illness or age. It's about a man who gave everything, his voice, his heart, his soul, to music, often at the expense of his own happiness. Behind the fame lies a lifetime of personal loss, family struggles, and emotional pain that few have ever seen. Today, Stevie lives a quieter life, away from the stage lights that once defined him. But as the world continues to celebrate his legacy, few realize the private battles he's been fighting just to keep going. This is the untold truth behind the legendary Stevie Wonder, a story of faith, heartbreak, and the silent suffering of a man whose music once made the world believe in miracles. Stevie Wonder's journey began in Saginaw, Michigan, where he was born 6 weeks premature in 1950. The complications from his early birth caused a condition called retinopathy of prematurity, leaving him permanently blind. But even before the world knew his name, destiny had already chosen him for greatness. By the time he was 4, Stevie could play the piano, drums, and harmonica, all by ear. Music wasn't just his passion. It was his language, his escape, and his purpose. When Motown Records discovered him at the age of 11, they knew they were witnessing something rare. Signed under the name Little Stevie Wonder, he released his first album before most children his age had even started middle school. His breakthrough came in 1963 with Fingertips, Part 2, a live recording that shot straight to #1, making him the youngest artist ever to top the Billboard Hot 100. But fame came with its own weight. While other kids were learning about friendship and freedom, Stevie was navigating recording sessions, endless tours, and the pressure of being a child prodigy. It wasn't easy growing up in the spotlight, he once admitted. I had to grow up fast, maybe too fast. Still, his determination was unstoppable. Through the 1970s, Stevie Wonder became more than a musician. He became a voice for hope and equality. Albums like Inner Visions, Songs in the Key of Life, and Talking Book reshaped not just soul and R&B, but music itself. His lyrics carried messages of peace, unity, and love, at a time when the world desperately needed them. He wasn't just singing, he was healing. But behind the brilliance was a man who often felt isolated by his own success. He once confessed that fame can be a kind of blindness, too, one that keeps you from seeing who you truly are. Despite his charisma and charm, Stevie struggled with loneliness. The stage gave him purpose, but off stage, he longed for a simpler life, one that fame could never give him. Then came the accident that nearly ended it all. In 1973, while touring for his album Inner Visions, Stevie was in a devastating car crash that left him in a coma for several days. When he woke, he had lost his sense of smell and taste for a time. Many feared he would never perform again. But miraculously, he returned to music stronger than ever, producing some of the most powerful songs of his career. Yet the emotional scars from that accident never fully faded. It was a reminder of how fragile life really was, and how quickly everything he loved could disappear. From that moment on, Stevie began to approach life differently, not as a superstar, but as a man aware that every note he sang could be his last. As the years went by, his fame only grew, but so did the burden of his personal struggles. Behind the scenes, Stevie faced heartbreaks, failed relationships, and the constant challenge of balancing fame with family. Despite his deep faith and optimism, there were moments when even he questioned his purpose. "I've seen light in the darkest places," he once said, "but I've also known darkness that no one sees." Stevie Wonder's rise from a blind child prodigy to one of the most influential musicians in history is nothing short of extraordinary. But his story doesn't end with triumph. It continues with tragedy, loss, and a battle that even his boundless faith couldn't completely protect him from. By the late 1980s and into the 90s, Stevie Wonder's presence in music was still powerful, but something deeper began to shift within him. Years of touring, performing, and giving everything to his audience had taken a toll. He had always been the man who seemed unstoppable, the child prodigy turned superstar who defied every obstacle life threw his way. Yet privately, Stevie was becoming increasingly weary. His health was beginning to show signs of strain, and the fast-paced life of fame had caught up with him. People close to Stevie have said that he often ignored his own well-being. He poured all his energy into his music, sometimes spending long nights in the studio, rarely taking a break. His passion was his strength, but it also became his weakness. By the early 2000s, those around him began to notice that he wasn't the same energetic performer he once was. He appeared thinner, tired, and sometimes withdrawn, and then came the news that shocked his loyal fans. Stevie had been battling serious kidney issues. Reports surfaced in 2019 that he required a kidney transplant, and while he remained calm in public, sources close to him revealed how frightening the experience truly was. "I'm all good," he told his audience at a show in London that year, trying to reassure them. But behind the scenes, the situation was more complicated. The surgery was successful, yet it marked a major turning point in his life. After the transplant, Stevie took a long step back from public life. Gone were the days of endless tours and stage performances that had defined him for decades. He focused on recovery, family, and faith, the three things that gave him strength. Yet, even in those moments of peace, he struggled emotionally. His body was healing, but the weight of time and reflection pressed heavily on his heart. He began to open up more about his fears of aging, of losing the ability to perform, and of not being able to share his gift the way he once did. Stevie's relationships also carried emotional pain. He's been married 3 times and has 9 children, and while he has always spoken with pride and love about his family, his personal life has not been free of heartbreak. The balance between being a father, a husband, and a world-renowned artist often tore him apart. Music demanded everything from him, and it often left little room for stability or peace at home. Those who've seen Stevie in recent years describe him as quieter, more reflective. The once constant smile now sometimes hides a deep sense of loss, not just of youth, but of time, friends, and moments he'll never get back. He's endured the deaths of several close friends in the music industry, including Prince and Michael Jackson, both of whom he loved dearly. Each passing seemed to remind him of his own mortality. Still, through it all, Stevie Wonder has never stopped believing. He continues to write, to play, to create, even if it's from his home studio rather than a sold-out arena. His faith, rooted in spirituality and love, keeps him grounded. As he once said, "I'm still here, and I'm thankful every day that I can share my heart through my music." But for those who grew up with his songs, who saw him as invincible, it's heartbreaking to see the man, who once seemed larger than life, now facing the fragility of time. His journey is no longer about fame or awards. It's about endurance, grace, and the quiet courage to keep going when the world isn't watching. As Stevie Wonder entered his 70s, life began to slow down in ways that even he couldn't have imagined. The man who had once commanded global stages with boundless energy now found himself cherishing silence more than applause. While fans longed for his return, Stevie was quietly confronting the reality that time was beginning to take its toll on both his body and his voice. In interviews, his tone had softened, his pauses longer, as if each word carried the weight of decades. He spoke less about fame and more about gratitude. Yet behind that gratitude was a lingering sadness, a sense that the world had moved on while he was still trying to hold on to what once was. The music industry that he helped shape had changed drastically. The soulful artistry that defined his generation had been replaced by digital beats and fleeting fame. Stevie often expressed concern that the heart of music, its humanity, was disappearing. But perhaps what hit Stevie hardest was the loss of connection. His blindness had never been a barrier for him, but aging brought new challenges. Moving around became harder. Travel became exhausting. And while he had always been fiercely independent, he now had to rely more on those around him. For a man who had spent his life proving that he could do anything, accepting help became one of his greatest emotional battles. Then there were the moments of reflection, those quiet nights when memories came rushing back. He would think of his early years at Motown, of Berry Gordy believing in a 12-year-old boy who could play piano like a seasoned genius. He would remember performing at the funeral of Martin Luther King Jr., tears in his eyes as he sang for a dream that had yet to be fulfilled. He would think of his mother, the woman who guided him through darkness and taught him that blindness was never a limitation but a calling. But those memories, while beautiful, also carried pain. Many of the people who had shaped his journey were gone. Friends, collaborators, and family members had passed away, leaving Stevie to carry their legacy alone. He once said in an interview, "The hardest part about getting older isn't the aches or the medicine, it's losing people who were part of your song." And though Stevie continues to appear at rare public events, fans have noticed a change. The once boisterous performer now walks slower, his voice quieter, his energy subdued. When he does speak, it's often about peace, forgiveness, and love, themes that have defined his music, but now seem to define his personal life as well. Still, even in the face of decline, Stevie Wonder remains a symbol of perseverance. He has never given in to bitterness or regret. Instead, he uses his pain as inspiration, reminding others that every season of life has its purpose. "I've had good days, I've had bad days," he once said, "but every day I've had music." And that is what keeps him going. Even when his body falters, his spirit doesn't. He spends hours in his studio at home, surrounded by instruments and recordings, sometimes just listening to the melodies that once moved the world. Music is still his oxygen, his reason to wake up each morning. To those who knew him personally, Stevie's strength lies not just in his talent, but in his faith. He believes that every note, every lyric is part of something divine. Perhaps that's why, even now, as he faces the twilight of his career, he continues to find peace in his purpose. For Stevie Wonder, the tragedy of aging isn't the loss of fame. It's the quiet realization that every song eventually ends. Today, at 75, Stevie Wonder lives a far quieter life than the world remembers. Gone are the days of massive tours, crowded arenas, and all-night studio sessions. These days, Stevie prefers peace, the comfort of his home, the laughter of his children, and the company of those who truly know him beyond the legend. But even in this quieter chapter, his story remains both inspiring and deeply heartbreaking. After decades of giving his soul to music, Stevie's health continues to be a concern for fans around the world. His kidney transplant, once successful, still requires ongoing care and constant medical attention. He moves slower, takes more rest, and rarely appears in public without assistance. The man who once played multiple instruments at once and sang with explosive energy now saves his strength for rare moments that truly matter. Despite all that, Stevie hasn't lost his sense of purpose. He's still writing, still recording, just in a more intimate way. His home studio has become his sanctuary, a place where time stands still and melodies still find their way to him. Even though he can no longer perform as frequently, his voice, though aged, carries a new kind of emotion, one shaped by experience, pain, and acceptance. Those who have heard him sing in private say that his voice, while softer, has never sounded more honest. What makes Stevie's story so moving isn't just his music or his blindness, it's his unwavering spirit. From being a child prodigy at Motown to becoming one of the greatest songwriters in history, Stevie Wonder has lived through eras of change, racial inequality, personal loss, and health challenges. Yet he has never stopped believing in love and humanity. Still, fame can be a lonely place, and for Stevie, that loneliness has grown heavier with age. The lights that once surrounded him have dimmed, and many of the friends who stood beside him on stage are gone. Michael Jackson, Prince, Aretha Franklin, names that once defined an era, are no longer here. For Stevie, each loss is a reminder of how fragile life truly is. He once said in a rare interview, "You never really say goodbye to the people you love. They just live in your music." And in many ways, that's how Stevie continues to communicate with the world. His songs, "I Just Called to Say I Love You," "Ribbon in the Sky," "Lately," and so many others, have become timeless messages of connection and compassion. Yet, there's a quiet sadness to his present. Friends say he often reflects on what's left undone, the performances he never gave, the people he never got to thank, the time he can't get back. He is at peace with his legacy but not immune to regret. Still, his humility remains his greatest gift. Stevie never saw himself as a superstar, only as a messenger for something greater, for love, truth, and unity. As he looks back on his extraordinary journey, Stevie's life reminds us that even the brightest lights eventually fade, but their warmth endures. His story is one of triumph and tragedy, joy and sorrow, sound and silence. He may no longer stand center stage, but his influence echoes everywhere. In every artist who draws inspiration from his words, every listener who found comfort in his melodies, and every soul who dared to believe that love could change the world. So yes, the tragedy of Stevie Wonder at 75 is heartbreaking, not because he's gone, but because time has finally slowed the unstoppable force of a man who once made the world dance, cry, and believe. But even now, in his quiet years, Stevie's message still rings true. Love is the answer, and the music never truly ends.